All right, we are live with you on another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Wanted to make sure that I got a broadcast in sometime here. We haven't done a live show in a while. I haven't done many videos in a while, but I seek to remedy that today. We're going to do a live stream slash drawing stream. Not really drawing, it's mostly inking. And we haven't done that in a while. And let me be the last to actually wish you a happy new year, 2025. We have a golden age of draw streams beginning now. I'm going to try to do these a little more often. And the thing about draw streams is I am going to be working on the panel that you see in front of you right now. I might not be able to see the comments because I can't get them on the screen. I just see them on the side whenever I go back to the page. So if there is anybody here in the chat for the live show, bear with me and be patient. And I'll try to refer to the screen every so often. So let me begin. What do you think? What do you think about how things are going? I'm in a good mood. I'm in a very good mood because we have Trump back in office. The good guys won. Everything is coming up roses. Everything's hunky dory. Everything's peachy keen. And I'm quite pleased. I mean, he's hitting the ground running this time. He ain't gonna he ain't gonna let the liberal drive-by media have a chance to even register what he's doing. He's going like top speed. And that's the way to go. That's the way you handle them. Because if he gives them even like a half a chance to catch their breath, they'll be all over him for something. And it's the same way with the Senate and the leftists, the power in Washington. They're just looking for any reason to go come down on him again. But again, all things working out so far. Very happy, very pleased with the way things are going. And another thing I wanted to point out here before we get too far, before I forget, we've got Bullets Bourbon is now free from the shackles of the paywall. Now you guys can go and check out on Global Comics. I should try to get a link up, I suppose, somewhere on this video. But I'm gonna keep the paywall off for like another week or two. Hopefully, you watch this video before it goes back on. I took it off about a week ago, and I'm like, at this point, I just want to get some eyes on the book. I've said on Twitter, I had a poll actually, which didn't get very many replies. But I had a poll saying that, if the paywall was off and you actually could just read the book for free, would you do it? And I got very little response. So I'm going to throw caution to the wind and say I know some creators do this. They take the paywall down and they say, well, it's better to have, let's say, 10 people read the book, and as long as like maybe 2% will end up buying the book after reading it, or maybe at least offer a generous tip, then it was worth it because as it stands now, not really making a lot. So I'm going to give that a try for a couple of weeks at least. So check out Global Comics. You can find it on my Twitter page. You can find it on my website, the link in the description below. And you can check it out and, let me know what you think. I'm really excited to get some readers here. Last year, I didn't do any appearances. I was kind of disappointed at that, but by the time I sort of got my head around to doing an appearance, it was like late in the season. It was December, and it's one thing if like in previous years, if I do November, December gigs, what I'll usually do is have them all set up like by June, July, maybe the latest. And I just wait until, it's time. But there was a lot of like last minute preparations to be made, and I wasn't prepared for a last minute gig. So I was like, and I had to just pass on the appearances, an appearance tour last year. Now this year, I don't know. Maybe we're going to try to see if we can get something going, but to sort of make up for that and not really getting too much in sales last year, I'm going to put the paywall down. See what you think. Take a look, and I am trying to wrap my head around it, such as it's as if I had the books in a library, and people are reading them for nothing. And hopefully enough people will cotton to what they see and want to purchase the books. Of course, you can go to Indie Planet to get the actual hard copy of the books. And I know I'm just talking, I'm not even drawing anymore. But you can pick up, I prefer you guys pick up the hard copy. You can actually get a solid book in your hand. That would be the way to go. Of course, if you don't, the digital copies are available both at Global Comics and at Indie Planet, so you have your choice. You can have it your way as if it were Burger King, and you rule. All right. For those of you who don't know, I had some woes with my laptop, kept me from working for several weeks at the end of last year. We finally got one, and it's basically the same one I had. I get the same one all the time now because I'm just so accustomed to it, and I've got the styluses that work with it, and I'm like, well, why try to mess with a good thing? So I got a Dell, what is it, Inspiron 16, and it does good. It serves the purpose. I was going to do some videos at the beginning of this year, earlier this year, and the problem was the new laptop wasn't like updated enough to support doing a video. So I had plans and they were scrapped. But I went to see Sonic 3. I was going to do a review video about that. And I probably won't now, but I'll tell you my thoughts about the movie. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And it's good, especially that they're letting the human characters take the side, take a side plot, a subplot, I guess, instead of like really involving them the way they did the first two times. They've been like gradually doing that because the way it goes is that the studios are like, like with the Smurfs. It's like, well, you have to do a human character, and they come to the human world, and this and that, and it takes a lot of time away from the original characters when you're setting all that up. And now that they set it up that world well enough, they're basically giving Sonic and his team, his growing team, more more free space to run around, uh, metaphorically, if not literally. I like James Marsden, though. I'm glad they did give him something to do. He does have an important function in the story. It's not like it's just a glorified cameo. He does have like he only gets like 10 minutes in the movie, but he's got something important to do. And Jim Carrey is fantastic. He's playing two characters this time, his grandfather and the original Ivor Robotnik, and he's really having fun. You can tell it's like classic prime '90s Jim Carrey back again, and he keeps suggesting that he might retire, and then he comes back, and then he retires, and he comes back. Frankly, I don't think he's even suggesting he's going to retire anymore. I think he'll be back for another Sonic movie, and they pretty much have already ensured that there'll be another Sonic movie because the end of this film, I'm not going to spoil it, but the end of this film does have a teaser that, pretty much, it pretty much like gets them right into the next movie already. It's like, what do they even have to set up next? I don't know. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was some poignant moments. It was actually pretty sad at some points. Now, I guess people who are familiar with the video games at least know some of these characters and stuff. I don't know them too well. I just remember the '90s cartoon with Sally and what was it, Snively, and some of those characters they made up for the cartoon. And they've got a lot of characters that I'm not aware of. Shadow being one of them, but he had a lot very poignant storyline there, and it reminded me of like the Winter Soldier. He's kind of like the Winter Soldier, and it was a lot of fun. It was good. I really enjoyed it. There was some Easter eggs, I guess, for fans of the games and stuff as well. I even recognize some of that. And yeah, I would give it a good, I don't know, probably I would say it's my favorite of the Sonic films so far. I liked I liked the first one. Second one I thought was really good, and this one's even better. So I would probably give this one like 5 stars, I guess, because they just keep improving. And Knuckles is a lot of fun. He's the muscle. He's kind of hot headed, and Tails is the invention guy. So yeah, very pleased. I guess I give it 5 stars, really, because I mean that's what I wanted in a Sonic film, and I got it. And it puts Sonic through the emotional ringer as well, which is again, it's very poignant at times for what you would expect to be a kids movie. All right, this is supposed to be glass, and I made it look like pieces of the wall. So I got to get rid of some of this. There we go. This is like very tedious, and this is what I spend a lot of my time doing, not just fixing it, but I have to like re-ink it because I want to make sure that this shows up. And I've made the mistake in the past of not darkening certain lines, and then when I actually get the book, I'm like, I think I should have darkened that. And there's other things like random lines that I got to get rid of. And I've spent a abnormal amount of time doing that. And again, it could get really tedious. Another movie I seen recently that I was going to do a video of, and I'm probably not going to get around to it now, was the director's cut of Rocky 4. Now, Rocky 4 is probably my favorite of the Rocky movies. I know the first one is the best. I mean, nobody's going to disagree with that. But Rocky 4 was the one that really got me into Rocky as a kid. And it's my favorite. It's really people chide it for being like a music video. It's like nonstop montages. There's, you know, rock numbers of the day that, are in it a lot more than the other films. But to me, that's kind of the appeal. The appeal is it's all about the fight. There really isn't. The first two films in the Rocky saga are dramas, and the fight takes a lot of precedence, but it's not the main thrust of the story, the main thrust of the film. In Rocky 4, it pretty much is all about the fight, and I didn't like the new material. I think if anything, the only thing that was really satisfactory was I think they tightened up the fight between Apollo and Drago so that he doesn't look like he's completely helpless. Because there is a point in the original cut where you kind of feel like, you know, why isn't Rocky throwing the towel? Why isn't something happening here? It kind of feels like it's a lot tighter that, this is happening. And Apollo is fighting back more in this one. He's not just a lamb to the slaughter. He doesn't just look like he's dead on two legs. It does look like he's trying to fight back and that he thinks he has a chance. Maybe he has a chance. But of course, you know, fate is otherwise. His fate is otherwise. But that was pretty good. I think that was good that he tightened that a little. Um the aftermath, the funeral scene I thought was good. They had a eulogy by Duke, which was his trainer, which basically he's like saying he went out like a warrior, which is what he wanted to do. He kind of wanted to go out as a warrior. He needed that. And I think the original cut does enough to let you understand that. But I think for those who don't understand why Apollo was getting in this and wanted this fight so badly, it kind of I think spells it out to people. And that's not really a bad thing if you need it spelled out. But I don't know if it was needed. The rest of the scenes weren't really needed. They put in a couple scenes with Rocky and Adrian and uh before he leaves for Moscow or Russia or whatever. I that one was okay, but the rest of them really weren't needed. And they took out a lot of stuff. They took out a lot of stuff with the sun. I thought that was really the core of it. When you see Rocky Jr. in all these films, he doesn't really even show up in 3. I mean, he's got like a cameo as a 5-year-old or something. Doesn't even show up. In 5, it's nobody likes 5 really, and his role in that is annoying. Rocky Balboa, then it comes like full circle, and I think you needed the kid Rocky Jr. in Rocky 4 to make that mean something in Rocky Balboa. At least to me. I mean, maybe the 5th movie, if you like the 5th movie, you'll have that connection there. But when I see Rocky Balboa and I see Rocky Jr. or Robert, as I guess he's named there, I think back to like Rocky 4 and the relationship Rocky had with his son there. And they completely took it out. The one scene they left in, like the bedroom scene before he leaves, they really completely changed that. That's not even, I don't think, remotely what that scene was originally. And that disappointed me. They took out the robot, of course. I mean, the robot's kind of lame, but it's an 80s movie. You need some of that cheese. And people are like, want to be too serious with these things. I mean, the Rocky movies pretty much gave up on being dramas in Rocky 3. Rocky 3 he became a superhero Rocky, and the same thing with Rocky 4. So I mean, if you like Rocky 3, you can accept what's going on in Rocky 4, and it gave Paulie some funny lines in the beginning of the movie. Now Paulie really doesn't show up until like what is it, the press conferences when you kind of first get classic Paulie back. So I would give the Drago cut, the Rocky versus Drago cut, I give that like 2.5 stars. Um, it's not as good a movie, and they changed the ending. They changed the ending where Gorbachev doesn't clap for Rocky. He just gets up and walks out, which I guess is probably more realistic if you're going for realism and stuff. But that was sort of the uplifting ending of the movie where, it's there's going to be peace between the Soviet Union and America. It's just a matter of time, and things will change and everybody can change. It just, again, it didn't need to be changed, that scene. They try to give Drago a couple of extra scenes or a couple of extra lines actually in the scenes he's in. I don't know. I mean, I like it more that he's just like a machine. That I understand not wanting him to be just depicted as a machine, but that's his purpose in this film really, is to be a machine, and Rocky can't stop him and he doesn't have a chance, and to humanize him a little too much would be I don't know, a mistake, I think. But yeah, I mean, the first film, I mean, the original cut of the film is still my favorite version of that. I would give the original version of Rocky 4 5 stars, and I would give the Drago cut, or whatever it's called, the Rocky versus Drago cut, I would give that probably 2.5 stars out of 5. If it came out like that, I guess I would probably still like it, but in comparison, it's just not that compelling viewing to me anyway. Alright, so in this scene here, what we're doing is Bullets is fighting 9 Volt in the office of another character, who I'm not gonna get into right now, and he's broken through a window, and he comes in and just starts bashing heads in and stuff like Bullets is wont to do. And again, you gotta ink it, you gotta make sure these lines are not too light, not too dark, gotta make sure they're straight where they need to be, and it's very exciting. I remember back in the day when I used to do these draw streams, usually it was my outlet for, complaining about what's going on in comics and this and that. So, do you guys really want me to dish the dirt about that as well? I don't know. Should I go there? Nobody watches these draw streams. I guess I can go there. How's about the Comicsgate versus Rippaverse stuff that's been going on here for like, I don't know, what has it been, a year now? So ridiculous. So ridiculous and unnecessary. Well, you know me, my motto, such as it is that, I don't make enemies. I don't make enemies with anybody. I don't believe in harassing people, but that's basically what's going on now. I mean, I remember backing away from Comicsgate when it became you know, the war campaign years, and it just uh, it just went down a really bad avenue, and it feels like the same thing is happening here, where it's just endless war after endless war with Ripaverse and this and that. It's one thing to have an opinion, and that's fine. You can have an opinion and leave it alone. If you say, "Well, Ripaverse ain't that great," you can have that opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. But turning it into your whole brand now, Comicsgate's brand is basically, we all hate the Rippaverse. Isn't Eric July a horrible person or whatever? It's like that's our brand now for Comicsgate. I don't particularly feel it. I don't know. I mean, I guess in this case, it's more like I'm not leaving Comicsgate. Comicsgate's leaving me. I mean, the first time I felt like I left Comicsgate because I didn't like what was going on with War Campaign. In this case, I feel more like I'm just not interested anymore. I mean, I turned on like a stream, an EVS stream, and I'm just bored. I mean, I'm not as much offended or whatever. You can say whatever you want about the Ripperverse. I don't care. Um, but it's if you're trying to entertain me or you're trying to bring the cause, so to speak, forward, it's just not there anymore. It's not there, and I'm not interested. So, I mean, I'm not making some kind of, you know, leaving Comicsgate announcement or anything, but I just like it doesn't interest me anymore. I can't hang with that kind of stuff. And as far as the Rippaverse is concerned, I mean, I has have said before, I think that Eric July is on the right track. I don't think he's there yet. I mean, maybe if that's what you want to criticize him about, but I even said online on Twitter, if you're going to be fair, which you should be fair with everyone, you have to compare Eric July's current stuff with EVS's 90s Cyberfrog stuff because obviously he's not as uh battle hardened or learned or whatever way you want to put it as EVS is now. So why would you say, well, his book is not that good? Well, was EVS's Cyberfrog that great in the early 90s? It's possible it was, but that's the barometer you have to compare it to. You can't compare it to, you know, what Cyberfrog is now because EVS has had what 30 years to ruminate on the character and the situation and the framing and everything. And of course his technical skills have improved since then. So, I don't understand why people are doing that for. I think as I said before, I think ISOM 1 was actually a good starting place. I wasn't crazy about ISOM 2 because I felt like we were jumping into like another with Bloodruth and demon aliens or whatever the heck that is he was getting into. I was like, I feel like we're getting off the beaten path. I don't think you should try to attempt too much too soon. That doesn't make it a bad story, but it just means that for me as the reader, I'm kind of like I feel like we're getting off the beaten path. So that would be my advice to him. Would be to try to focus up and not worry too much about getting the next series in the door. That's kind of like what it is. It's like trying to get the next series in the door with Bloodruth. Um, and as I always say as well, I mean, if you're going to do comics, I think the real reason for the hostility towards Eric July and the Ripperverse is if you want to do a universe like what Rip is doing, he's doing it the right way instead of like crowdfunding. And I think that's what's really at the root of the animosity is that he's showing that crowdfunding is good for a beginner. I think at a certain point you got to step away from the crowdfunding and sort of put your money where your mouth is. And you're making millions of dollars, you can grow the business and turn it into a legitimate business instead of just like, well, you can fund your comic and then sit on the money for like 3 or 4 years and then you come out with a product and this and that. Now, I've never been one of these guys that harangue about late books and, oh, what are they doing and this and that. It doesn't it doesn't seem to me to be a deal breaker because you're going to get a product at the end of the day. So you can complain that EVS takes too long, he's taking years in some cases, but you know that going in. So I mean, if you're all right with that, then why are you complaining? I know as a fact that the way I handle my creative process with my books is that I come up with the story on the spot, similar to what he does, and I've said this before. And I sort of am creating it as it's coming to me. And then when you have that process, it's not easy to just say, "Well, I know I'm going to get this story done in a year or whatever." In my case, it takes about a year to do a completed story. So I'm in the same boat. I'm not going to throw stones when I know that if I was to start a book from scratch, it would take me well over a year because I'm doing everything. I'm doing the coloring, I'm doing the inking, I'm doing the lettering, and you're going to expect that. Now, where I was, you know, smart to do is I've prepared these books in advance. I took 10 years to just draw all the books, write all the stories and draw all the books. Now I take like between 6 months to a year to ink them, color them, letter them. And of course, having a life outside of comics, I can't do all that like within a 3-month window or whatever you would expect for a book to be done. So I have to get these done slowly but surely. Now, in the case of what I do, which is what I think what really, you know, everybody should do, is you prepare first. You like I said, you get the books and stuff out of the way, then you promote after you're sure you have a book. You don't promote a book when you don't have the story written, when you don't have the art done. When that's done, then you promote. Like now, I can say, get excited about this, even though I'm not gonna ever charge you for a book before it's done. The only time I've ever done an Indiegogo, I tried twice, is when I'm doing a remaster. I remastered the first three stories in the series. And the book is already done that way. I'm just remastering it. This, I mean, I don't want to take money from you unless I know that it's done, and I'm never really going to know that it's done until I'm done with it. So, I mean, that's that's only fair. And I think also my advice to people would be to make sure that you do chapters, because if you're going to do like a novel, you're going to have people waiting for 3 or 4 years. If you're doing like whatever EVS does, like 80 pages or something, you're not going to get it done until like, 4 years go by. So I would say to do like I'm doing. I take the story, I break it up into chapters. I have, in this case, 3 chapters, 3 acts as I call them, and then you break the acts up into separate issues, and then you sell the separate issues so that people won't forget about you in 2 years. By the time the whole thing is done, it'll be 2 or 3 years. So make sure you break it up, serialize it, play to the strength of comics. Comics were always serialized, and it's like I've always said, comics are more a TV show. People have tried to make comics movies. Comics are TV shows. It's Tune In Again tomorrow. And if you want to make a movie and you want to make a graphic novel, you want to just do one big story, that's when you have to have patience and say, well, it's not going to be done because, like a movie, like, if you were waiting for the next Star Wars movie to come out, you were waiting like 3 years. And that's going to put a strain on your audience's, on your readers' patience, because a comic book will only take you, I mean, a movie take you 2 hours. Comic book probably will take significantly shorter to read, and depending on the length, it might be even shorter, you know, than you would expect, because a lot of people put mostly action. I'm kind of the opposite with my books. I put a lot of dialogue, and I know it's probably ripe for criticism, but I just picked up, as a matter of fact, um, the Marvel Masterworks Daredevil Volume 3. And back in the day, Stan Lee, his books were pretty verbose as well. It wasn't like nowadays, because the 90s wasn't great. Of course, by today's standards, it was a golden age, but the 90s wasn't great. What it really focused people on is the action that, like, you have to have about like 30% of the book be no words and just people like fighting and whatever, jumping and whatever. I'm not really like that. I'm like the opposite. I think a book should be 30% action and then like, you know, 70% story. There should be dialogue, there should be conversations, and of course we're doing an action scene right here, which is good. And just gotta check once in a while and see if there's anybody asking a question. Of course, if you're watching this after the fact, you want to hear something, my opinion on something, you can just put it in the comments. We've got a bunch of new subscribers as well. I don't have the list in front of me, but I want to thank everybody who's subscribed, and I'll take a look at that list when we do our next Torch News Roundup. There's some news. I think they just hired a guy to play Sinestro in the Lantern show, and he looks pretty good. I'm not familiar with him, honestly, so I don't know what to say about that, but, you know, it's always a good thing if the actor resembles the character. I just hope they give him the David Niven mustache. That's Sinestro needs that. He needs the David Niven mustache. Otherwise, he kind of looks like the character. I think Mark Strong looks so good. It was a shame that casting was wasted on that film. I mean, it wasn't a great movie, the Green Lantern movie, mostly because, like I said, I hated um, Hammond, whatever that guy's name was with the big head. That was really bad. But the rest of it, I think you could have improved on it with a better sequel. I mean, look at Star Trek: The Motion Picture gave way to The Wrath of Khan. I mean, it happens that way sometimes where you get a dud coming out of the gate and then you can course correct. It's funny because with a situation like Batman v Superman and the Snyderverse, no amount of course correction in heck was going to save that. They just burned the barn down from the opening. Zack Snyder deserved to be nowhere near the DC characters. I'm so happy now that we got James Gunn in the director's seat and the prestigious leading the company. But the thing is I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Gunn, to be honest with you. I like maybe two movies that he did, so three maybe. I don't know. I think the first Guardians, the third Guardians was good. Wasn't crazy about the second Guardians. I hated the first Scooby Doo. Second Scooby Doo I thought was good. Did he direct the second one? I think he did. So he's just not going in there with the greatest track record from me. I mean, I wasn't crazy about the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker. I'm not watching that, but I don't know. I mean, he seems to have his head on straight when it comes to Superman, and I think there's too much at stake for him to screw around. To be honest, what's my favorite rule of movie making? They always let the director, if it's a hit, if they're coming back, they always let the director have carte blanche and ruin the sequel. So I think there's too much at stake that the Superman movie is going to be good. Everything is hinging on it, and the company needs a hit after the Snyder years and the so-so stuff that came out even after he was gone from the company. But that's when you have to worry when it's the sequel, when you have the director coming back and the studio is saying, "You did a good job. You gave us a hit. Now do whatever you want, but give us another hit." And the director is like, "Yeah, I want to do more. I want to have more say." And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." and the director gets more say, and they make a mess out of it. This has happened so many times. It happened with uh, Tim Burton with Batman Returns. He put too much of his weird crap in it. This happened with which, by the way, like I always say, I'm not a big fan of the first Tim Burton Batman, but you could tell it was well cast and well made, both of his movies. But it was just not Batman as we know it. The same thing happened with Joss Whedon on Avengers. He gave us a real great, tight Avengers film, and then when it came time for Ultron, it was like some of his weird, you know, sense of humor and weird moralizing stuff that, I could have done without, but and the only one that I can think of that escaped that is probably Sam Raimi. To my mind, he's the best director of superhero movies. He's gotten it right 100% of the time. Now, Spider-Man 3, you can argue he had some uh, slip ups with the idea of changing Uncle Ben's uh, murder, but for the most part, he had his head on straight the whole time, and he didn't like mess things up. Richard Donner maybe with the Superman, but he never really got a chance to finish Superman 2 the way he wanted to. So I don't think we'll ever really know how he would have done that. I don't think he would have had them turn the world back again. You don't really want to go into the sequel replaying the most important scene again. Just makes it look bad. But some people are like really weird and nitpicky with that scene. They're like, oh, he couldn't do that. He would make the world fall apart or whatever. It's like it's a fantasy, you know what I mean? Things were so much better when we didn't have to appeal to the science nerds and "Oh, he's making her forget by kissing her." Well, yeah, it's a fantasy. I mean, Superman, I'm sure he's got some kind of hypnotic abilities. I mean, the way that he fools everybody into not thinking he's Superman when he's Clark Kent, he's got some of that charisma going on that he makes people forget, I think, from the jump. So it's not too hard to buy the additional power, so to speak, that he's got. Let's see. Captain America 4 or Captain America Brave New World. Is that what they're calling it? That's coming up next month. And I probably will go see it. I said online today, actually, I had a dream I saw it and it was pretty good. But that was because it had the Hulk in it and Steve Rogers and I think Ant-Man. But no, we're getting the bargain basement Captain America. I don't think this is what disappoints me. I don't think Seth Rollins is in it anymore because they went over and reshot the film so many times. I don't even know what the heck it was originally going to look like. But I'm probably going to see it mostly because I want to see Harrison Ford turn into the Hulk. I know we've probably seen most of that already in the trailers and commercials, but that's probably going to be worth the price of admission. And not only that, but I think this is probably going to be the closest thing we have to a sequel to The Incredible Hulk, which is actually, I would go so far as to say it's my favorite MCU film. And, if I want to see what happened with the leader, I want to see what happened with Betty Ross. I guess she's supposedly got a part to play, small as it may be. Um, this is the only way we're going to find out, I guess, what happened there. So I'm going to see it. But I mean, at some point, they're gonna have to, like, rehaul all this. I mean, there's already suggestions that they're gonna have a new Black Panther actor. I don't know how they're gonna do this. Is it gonna be, from a new dimension, or is it gonna be the, kid that they introduced in the last film for the Black Panther, and they're gonna have him age up? Uh, it's like, don't mess with a good thing. Everybody was, loving what they did, and, I'm sure Chris Evans, you park a boatload of money in front of him. He'll play Captain America again. I can guarantee it. And it was just like the social experiment. That's why I'm so glad that DEI apparently it's over. Apparently it's on its death rattle now. I mean, I think companies like Disney are going to be the the last to drag their feet over the finish line and say, "Yeah, we're not doing the Black Little Mermaid anymore. We're not doing Hispanic Snow White. We're gonna try to do things the way that audiences expect them." But they're gonna have the hardest time getting over that fact that wokeness is over. I don't know what it's gonna take, but as long as we've got people like Kathleen Kennedy in charge of Star Wars, these people are the acolytes of you know, that belief. It's not going to go away as long as they're around, but it's a first step, and hopefully now that maybe the money's not going to them for being woke, these companies are going to start waking up and saying, yeah, we're not getting paid by the government anymore to or getting some kind of financial benefits. I mean, you know, uh, Obama's the one that put that in. I think that where the companies, if they had so many DEI hires or whatever, they were gonna get money. And with Trump now taking all that stuff off, it's finally everything's gonna be merit based. And that's what I've always said that we should be. I mean, I can understand if maybe in the beginning, after the civil rights movement or whatever, they wanted to have affirmative action, try to get minorities to have a better chance to get into the workforce, whatever, for these things. But at this point, we've had a black president, we've had black generals, we have black Supreme Court justices. I mean, there's really nothing there's no reason for it anymore. It's ridiculous that we're still doing this kind of stuff. And so it was way past time that we get back to merit based. And we should have always been that, of course. But I mean, it's like there's no excuse for it after like 50, 60 years now. So I'm sure this is really exciting viewing, just seeing me draw lines and fix lines and correct lines and this and that. But this just gives you an idea of the care to which I try to put into these books. I don't just try to do willy nilly. You know what I mean? I'm putting the work in. That's why I say you got to give me a chance. You got to take a look at these stories. You got to tell me what you think. And I am sure that you'll be just as interested in the finished product as you are here because, like I said, I put in the work. I try not to just, like I said, I have done in the past. I've tried to like let certain things go, like not have to darken every line and this and that. But then I don't like the results. And if I don't like the results, I'm like, well, why would anybody else like the results? So I try to make sure that it's about as reasonably done to my standards as professionally possible. Gee, I guess we'll probably wrap it up now. It's probably dinner time for you as well as I. But it was fun talking about some of these things here. We've got let's see, I think 23 pages in this one. That's why it's taken a while, and it's going to take a long time for me to finish up with this. But in the meantime, as I said before, you can take advantage of the Bullets Bourbon freebie week beginning now and probably ending sometime at the beginning of next month, February. And hopefully, you guys can check it out. Let me know what you think. We've got the whole first season there for your perusal. The first season introduces us to such characters as Carrot Top and Pencil Neck, Sour Note, the devious and delightful Veronica, who is going to return in this issue. And we're going to see how that story progresses. Because the fun thing about Veronica is she's always changing. She, adapts to like different stories well. Now, the first one that she was in, The Family Jewels, I was like thinking of her as just a plain out bad guy. But then when I was working on the book, I realized that she had ulterior motives for the reason why she was a villainess. And so, like in this story, she's more sort of like a Catwoman frenemy. She's not really like evil anymore, but you wonder if Bullets can trust her. And again, she wasn't really evil for the sake of being evil, like Carrot Top, Pencil Neck, but she basically was doing it out of like survival. She was working for Carrot Top and she really didn't want to. And she's a fun character because again, I sort of created her with the thought of since Carrot Top is like my Lex Luthor and Pickle Puss is like my Otis, she was sort of my idea of like Miss Tessmacher, but I didn't want her to be in love with Carrot Top, so that's where things started like changing for her, and she became sort of a very different character in her own right. And I think I've mentioned it before as well, but Scotch is returning. Uh, I really like writing for him. He's a fun character, a difficult character in a way because he has to be the opposite of Bullets. He's sort of like, well, like I've described him as being sort of like that classic '80s TV show PG rated womanizer. So he's like kind of chasing Veronica, and Bullets Bourbon is going to be in some very serious trouble in this episode. I mentioned it before. I don't think it's a secret that he's going to be tortured, and we're going to see him really need help because he is going to be put through the ringer here by General Diesel and the battery pack. So, very exciting times ahead. As I've said, this is one of my favorite stories I've done. I really like this one. And there's a lot of action. I know, like the last story I did, I saved all the action for the end. This one is really action packed all the way through. Uh, it's just going to be a fun time. So keep your eyes open for this. We were building up to uh, General Diesel for a long time, and now that he's finally here, I'm sure you're not going to be disappointed. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, I didn't get the musical intros and outros and commercials and this and that onto this laptop yet, and I don't feel like looking for my uh whatever they call those little things you stick in the computer, discs or whatever. So we're just going to end it abruptly, but thank you for joining us, and hopefully I will be able to get more videos out than just one per month, which seems to be my average lately. And we'll try to do some more live streams. We'll try to do some more draw streams during this year. But once again, Happy New Year 2025. Hopefully it's a good one for all of us. And check out the temporarily released paywall from Bullets Bourbon Comics in Global Comics. You go there, you can check out the whole series. You can check out season one, as we're calling it. And don't just check one issue out, check them all out because you really need to see the whole show. Because I feel like if you just read the first book, you know what I mean? I like to think that I improve in every book that I do. And it's like every story gets better. The artwork, is going to get better. The production quality of the books are going to get better. Not that they're, poor to begin with, but I always have the feeling like, I think every artist slash creator feels this way that, your last book is your best book. And I keep feeling like I'm improving. And I feel like if people just start with the first book and put it down, you really don't got the whole story there. You just got an introduction, especially the first issue in the Bullets Bourbon series. It's only like 20 odd pages. And I just put together a fast story to get people acclimated so you get an idea of what to expect. But you don't really get the full experience with that one story. All right, so I'll see you again when I see you again. And until then, remember, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.